Hello and welcome, Bulletproof here with a quick tutorial on aiming. There's been a number of requests for this, so I thought I would make a nice tutorial for you guys to try to teach some good tactics to get a good long burst in on the target, so you guys aren't bouncing around and kind of spraying and praying, essentially. This is a replay, so I'll try to kind of describe what's going on a bit, as you will obviously not be able to see the HUD I have turned on as much as I can to show you guys, so I'll try to explain what you can't see. I'll also give a little bit of suggestions for tactics as well, just to kind of fill some of the time. So starting off with the basics of getting a good aimed shot is always being smooth with what you're doing with the controls. You don't want to be too aggressive to try to get the Piper where you want it onto the target. If you do that, you're going to end up bouncing around, porpoising left to right, and you're just going to spray bullets all around them and not hit very much. So as a result, one of the things that I'll do is that I will make sure that there is always just a little bit of an excess of nose down trim. That way I'm basically just varying the amount of backstick pressure. I very rarely have to actually push down. If I have to push down, that's going to kind of throw my shot. It's very hard to actually get just the right amount of nose down stick, or push the stick forward to actually line up a good shot. So you want to kind of reduce the amount that you actually have to do that. The other thing that you want to do is use your ailerons to change the vertical plane. The vertical plane would be if you pulled straight back on the stick, the flight path that your plane goes through, that would be the vertical plane. It's straight up, basically. You want to use the ailerons to line that up with the flight path of the target so that you can just smoothly pull the Piper to the proper deflection through his flight path and let a nice 1 to 2 second burst go into his aircraft. So this is the Battle of Britain. I got tired of the Russian versus Germany setup. Since I know that I'm playing the British with my 109, I am getting a lot of altitude to make sure that I build up my energy. This aircraft obviously can't turn fight nearly as well as a Spitfire or the other British aircraft, so I'm going to make sure that I use the advantage of the rate of climb of this aircraft to kind of try to fight with energy rather than turning. And I'm going to use geometry rather than shedding energy, as well as shedding speed to stay on the 6. Another thing that I do is I fly through these clouds when I'm actually going through them. It's kind of an IFR condition. I can't see anything. Use the horizontal, as I do not have a horizontal indicator, I use the turn indicator, which is actually the dial in the middle on the bottom row of the instrument panel, the big one that has the left and right. You can see it right there. I'm in a left turn. And you can kind of tell if you're in a left or right bank depending on if you're in a left or right turn. The other thing that you can also do is look at the top left and right of the canopy. As you're going through the clouds, you'll notice that there'll be a slight difference depending on what side bank you're in. With the water coming over the canopy, it'll kind of get lighter on the side that you are banked towards. So if you're in the left bank, the water will be coming off the left side of the canopy different than it will the right. So another kind of thing to look for. And with an aircraft like this, it doesn't have either rudder or aileron trim. You always want to use rudder trim. Barely ever want to use aileron trim unless you have battle damage. If you are kind of listing to the right, that means you need to put more right rudder, and you don't want to put in right aileron trim necessarily. But for an aircraft like this, without either of those, actually when I dive, since I know that I'm going to come up to the speed that I want anyway, I'm going to put the engine to idle, so that way that the engine isn't kicking out any torque roll that would have the trim to kind of negate. So the aircraft isn't moving anywhere. I'm just taking my hand off the stick, essentially. So as I come down out of the clouds, I'm looking around. I'm not going to spend too much time down here. Obviously, somebody that is already down here is going to be harder for me to see them. It's going to be a lot easier for them to see me as I'm silhouetted against the white clouds, especially with the camouflage that the British have. It's going to be even harder for me to see them. So I'm going to come back and retreat back into the clouds here, especially as the AAA is opening up on me. It's going to kind of alert them to my location. You can actually see what I was talking about here. You can see I'm in a little bit of a left bank. The water coming over the canopy is a little bit different on the left side. Now I'm in a right bank. It's a little bit to the right. You can also look at the indicator as well. See it moves over to the left as it moves into the left bank. Over to the right again. So now that I know that anybody that would have been on me is now fairly significantly lost where I am, and I can dive back down again. I did notice that there was a AAA that had been destroyed by a Spitfire, so I knew that I was over several AAA locations, so I saw that plume of smoke over there and knew that was probably it. Saw the tracers from my friendly right here, kind of looked for the indications of player activity. Unfortunately for me, he's already been taken down. I'm a little late to this party. So I'm going to start climbing. I'm going to start looking around for any bandits. Oh, and as you can see, a hurricane has now kind of come out onto my 6. Had I not been looking around, he would have pretty much eaten me for breakfast right there. I knew that I had just about the same speed, maybe slightly more speed, and with the advantage that I have in the rate of climb, I'm going to go into the vertical, force him to stall out sooner as he doesn't have that same rate of climb that I do. And I'm going to push the nose over with the rudder ever so slightly so I don't spin the aircraft. Well, that way the stall forces the nose down where I want him. Smoothly pull that Piper up, as I said, into this flight path and let a short burst go. That was just kind of a short burst, put a little damage on him, try to give him a damage model, reduce his maneuverability. As you saw, I extended away and went vertical, maintained the energy advantage, as well as I didn't want to turn fight with him, otherwise I would have just overshot. Actually, on that particular shot, or those shots right there, the lag of the replay was actually the reason why it looked like the shot was off so much. The shot in reality was much closer. As I come down, instead of going back onto his 6, I noticed these two guys coming over. And you always want to maintain that situational awareness so that you don't get somebody on your 6 when you're trying to engage. So I'm going to try to help my wingmate out over here. However, as I come in to help him out, I noticed that hurricane from before was pulling around, and had I continued, he would have come around on me. We would have had a situation where we essentially would have had 2 British aircraft on our 109s, which would have been a terrible situation, so I'm going to take care of him first. A little bit of a noob. I should have got out of his way, but as you can see, I pulled my Piper. I used my ailerons to change the vertical plane of my aircraft into his flight path, pulled up smoothly onto him so that I could get that nice short burst onto him, and I got lucky. Since I didn't get out of his way, he didn't try to put shots into me, otherwise this game would have been much, much shorter for me, as we would have collided had he tried to go for me. So, do as I say, not as I do sometimes. So I'm looking around for the other 2 guys. I'm trying to reobtain the Spitfire that was chasing our 109 so I can provide some cover for our friendly. I'm communicating a little bit on the radio with them, try to figure out where they are. He has requested cover, which tells me which sector he is in, and as I know I'm in the same sector, I'm circling, looking out for him, kind of scanning the horizon. They tell me that they are at low altitude rather than putting their smoke on like I requested, which was also another thing that you can do. And also, since he requested cover again, I was able to see his new sector, so I can kind of figure out his flight path as a result and kind of go towards where I think he is. And I see these tracers over here, so I know that's where they are. And this is actually that other friendly, the other 109, joining the fight. And as a result, he is forcing that Spitfire onto the defensive and allowing our 109 to go over and land. Now, as I'm coming in here, and this guy's already set up on his 6, my primary responsibility, my primary concern is deconfliction with my wingman. He's already had a bit of time to put some rounds into him, so I'm going to kind of say that he's not really doing the job, so I'm going to kind of butt in a little bit. Because I know I have a higher speed. Once I get past him, I know I'm not going to have a problem with deconfliction. Also, this is kind of a game that I was trying to get a good video to show you guys for this tutorial, so I'm not going to be too concerned about stealing kills. It's all for the good of the cause. So as you can see, I just put my Piper where I knew he was going to be and let a good long burst go into him and put him into a damage model. Smoothly pulled up into him as I'd already changed my vertical plane into him. Let a nice burst go into him and tore him out of the sky. I'm looking around, I can tell that there's another aircraft around. Those are friendly ships, so I can tell that there's a bandit. As I see those tracers go off, I know that that other guy is definitely not a friendly. So I kind of pull up onto him and try to get deflection on him, but he successfully pulls inside. I know that I can't follow on that one. As we're now on 2-on-1, I'm going to try to extend away here a little bit. If we both try to get into a turn fight, neither of us are going to get onto his 6, and he's going to just pull us down one by one, so I kind of extend away a little bit. But as a result, I also kind of lost visual on him, trying to reacquire, and as I kind of see him coming up from the bottom at the last second, I was able to ascertain that he had a lower speed than I did. So I'm going to use the advantage of both the aircraft and the situation. I know I have higher speed. Pull into the vertical again, force him to stall out before I do. And here he's actually going to get sandwiched between two friendlies. Put a critical hit on him. It's going to be much more difficult for him to try to get a shot on me as he gets closer towards stall. As you can see, he only did minor damage to me, and my friendlies were able to do major damage to him as a result of him making himself a very easy target. Otherwise, with the British, their damage model can be a little bit questionable. He's still flying fairly well, despite being critted, so between that and the fact that, as I said, this game was for making this video, I'm not overly concerned about stealing a kill. Kind of a jerk move, but it's for the good of the cause, as I said. So as you saw, I used the geometry. I didn't just throw the throttle to idle and the flaps out. I instead did a lag roll. And as you're going to see up here, I'm actually going to have too much nose up trim. I'm going to take that out before I actually engage. Otherwise, I'm not going to get a very clean shot. I'm going to be bouncing around all over the place. So you can see now I get a good clean shot, finish off whatever was left in my cannons, all the ammo, and lay into them with the machine guns. As you can see, that's the benefit of being smooth and having just a little bit of nose down trim, so that you have to kind of just vary that backstick pressure. It allows you to be a little bit smoother. With the rudders, you don't want to use the rudders too much, maybe to make a last second alteration to kind of the left-right of the gun sight, maybe to change from a wing to the fuselage with your target, or perhaps from, if it's a bomber, from the fuselage or a wing to the engine, so that you can kind of aim your shot just a little bit better. Perhaps maybe even on a head-on pass, you might use the rudder a little bit so that you can kind of have your flight path off of the target's flight path. You can kind of deconflict while putting the rounds on target. Otherwise, if you use too much rudder, you're going to end up bouncing around. And if you get too aggressive, as I said, you're just going to end up spraying a circle of bullets around the aircraft. You're not going to hit very much. That's another good way to practice getting smooth and having good control over your aircraft, is also to fly formation in the beginning of the game. Find a friendly and perhaps inform him that you'll be flying off him. Don't get too close. If you're flying fingertip, you don't want to bring somebody down. You get him kind of pissed off after he's been waiting 30 minutes for the game to start. But fingertip will kind of help you get good control of your aircraft, but in terms of actually lining up a shot, it might also be advantageous to actually fly what's called extended trail directly behind him, about 0.15 miles. The distance doesn't really matter in terms of practicing for this, but you can kind of practice lining up a simulated shot. Obviously don't fire, that's going to kind of piss him off, but just kind of practice pulling your piper up around on him, especially when he turns, and that way you can kind of get some artificial practice, if you will. So I hope this helps. If you have any other questions or concerns, need clarification, feel free to leave a comment on this video, or perhaps just write me on the forum or the forum post. I'll be happy to help. Thanks, I hope this helps. Happy hunting.